Hey, before we get in this episode, can you do us a favor? Will you go ahead and subscribe to the channel?
Will you ring that notification bell?
And if you would, give this video a like. Well, enough of that mumbo jumbo. Let's get to the episode.
Let's talk developmentally speaking, glow up, and connecting through wrestling.
Hey everybody, I'm Morty.
And I'm Brian.
And on today's episode of Connecting Through Wrestling, we have two-time and current NWA World Heavyweight Champion. That's right, with the 10 pounds of gold, Trevor Murdoch. Trevor, thank you so much for being on here today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome. So we start every interview with the same question, and it usually it has sometimes it has a short 10-second answer, and sometimes it has a 25-minute long answer. It's your discretion on how you would like to answer it. What made you get into wrestling?
I don't know. Like when I was a young kid, pro wrestling was kind of an outlet for me. It was something I remember when my parents were still together. It was something my brother and I would do on Sundays. We would watch world-class wrestling. And then as my family life kind of went into some turbulence for the next 10 plus years, wrestling always kind of seemed to be the constant. You know what I mean? I lived in foster homes for a certain amount of time, for about 5 years of my life. And when I would switch from home to home or go to a different group home, when we got to watch TV, wrestling, some form of it was always on TV. So as I got older, I always loved it. But I was also coming up in a time period where there weren't a lot of schools out there. There wasn't a lot of places, you know, first off, I remember a time before the internet. I remember a time where I still remember had to use a map to get to, show to show. Well, when I was older and there wasn't any place to go for wrestling schools, I wanted to do it, but I focused on real life. I ended up going to Job Corps out of high school and became a certified welder. Went to Georgia, building railroad cars for a period of time. I got homesick, and when I came back home, my legit shoot brother was wrestling for an independent company and met a guy that he was working with at the factory, and they trained him. So when I came back home, they were like, hey, you want to start doing security? The funny thing is I was taller than most all the wrestlers except one guy, you know what I mean? Because I've always been real tall and thick. So there's actually pictures out there of me walking wrestlers to the ring, one of them being my brother, and I'm bigger than the actual wrestlers that are in the match. Before and after the shows, the guys would use me as a tackling dummy because I was a big guy, and I could take the bumps. If they can do it to me, they can do it to this guy. And so one night when I came to the show to do security, a wrestler didn't show up, and the promoter was like freaking out, looking around, going like, I need somebody, and looked at me, he's like, you've been training. And they put me under a hood, and I had my first wrestling match. And I wrestled for about 2 years. I was the shit. I was horrible. I knew how to get my ass kicked. I really enjoyed it. So of course, guys took liberties. I was a young guy, so I was like Gumby. You couldn't hurt me. Luckily, I got lucky enough that I went and wrestled for a promoter in Arkansas who kind of screwed me over one show, and to the point where I literally had to drive home with the pennies that I had in my truck home for gas. He owed me a favor, and Harley Race was putting on he was starting World Legion Wrestling in Springfield, Missouri, and he ended up getting me booked on a show, and that's how I met Harley.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's your long answer.
Yeah, well, that was definitely an abridged version compared to most. So yeah, and met Harley, and the rest is history for sure. So with NWA 74 coming up, what have you done mentally, physically, to prepare for this match coming up?
I'm probably wrestling the biggest guy in probably pro wrestling right now. You're talking about Tyrus. He's 6'8", 6'9", uh, pushing every bit of 400 pounds. He's not a guy that I can just, pick up and toss around. Usually, I'm the biggest guy in the ring,
Right.
um, and that's an advantage I've used for a long time. That's not the case in this situation. So I've been hitting the gym a little bit more. You got with a guy like that, as much beef as he's going to be and has. Um, you gotta you gotta get a little stronger. You gotta hit the gym, and even old fat boy like me had to put some weight on, and I'm pushing every bit of 300 now, and that's just to combat what I got to do with Tyrus.
Great.
I keep saying because I really don't know, like people don't understand exactly what's going to happen at 74. Like, this isn't going to be the most technical match of the year. This isn't going to be the high spot fest of a 5-star Meltzer match. This is going to be a smash mouth, two guys going in there beating the shit out of each other and trying to see who the toughest guy is. And you know Tyrus don't play, and he knows I don't either. Um, we've never wrestled each other, and that was by design. We've known each other for a really long time, and we know that we both have tempers that could 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 lead to some painful matches. And if we were going to do it, we at least wanted to get paid for it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you really can't ask for any more than a world heavyweight title match. And as much as I don't want to wrestle Tyrus, I do, because I am the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. And if I'm going to lose, I want to lose to a guy who's bigger, stronger, faster,
Of course.
not some idiot that was lucky enough to DDT me on the concrete and catch a slick win over me.
Yeah, I was there for that, and that was rough. That match was. My wife doesn't do blood, and he was, and she was shocked.
I don't do blood, boys. Like, this isn't something like Trevor. I'm an old school guy, but my forehead isn't a cheese grater like some of those old school.
Right.
So I'm not somebody who likes to get split open, just like the next guy. So for me, yeah, it was a tough night, and there was a bruised ego after that. There was a lot of tough times after that, but I persevered. I started, I quote unquote from the bottom, but you know what I mean. I wasn't afraid to step into the ring and prove myself again. And when I got the opportunity, I took it. And I told everybody I was going to do it for a long time. Every promo I was cutting, I was telling them, I'm coming, I'm going to get it. Just give me a minute.
Right.
And I did exactly what I said I was going to do.
I tell you what, this is about the power trip in Oak Grove. I there was some guy I was in the front row that just absolutely hated you, and
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
you know who? Okay, my God, that guy would not shut up. And this is totally not related to this conversation, but God, he annoyed the crap out of me.
Believe it or not, he was another one of those. We were talking before the podcast started. Guys contacting me wanting to do their podcast. He was one of those guys, and I knew he had some screws loose in the loony bin. And if you go back, that exact same guy, if you go back to 73, the night that I wrestled Nick Aldis, and you watch that match, that same guy's screaming, doing the exact same thing, but except it's all love. I love what Trevor Murdoch says. He loves this guy. He's the greatest. He's going to kill you, Nick. He's going to be the world champion. It's the same horse shit, except, when he came, he was mad because I wouldn't do his podcast. He came back
Nah,
to
he was
Kentucky.
He was like, "F you! You're not from St.
Oh,
Louis."
yeah.
Blah blah. I'm like, what is this guy's
Oh.
deal?
Yeah, that's he totally proved my case on why I go through NWA to do all of my publicity and my media stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, we definitely appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Being, I just want to say, we're from Seymour, Indiana, so we're about 40 minutes north of Louisville. So we've been around, like OVW and previous your career. So we've got to actually watch you for a long, 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 long time. And it really is an honor to to have you come on and to finally be able to talk to you and to see how far you've come from point A to point B, and that you are, the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. It's been a fun journey watching your career this whole time. Just seeing the evolution of Trevor.
Well, no, I appreciate it, boys. It's really hard for me. I'm kind of stubborn in the fact that it's hard for me to give up, especially on something that I care about.
Mm-hmm.
And I love pro wrestling. I love being out there in front of the fans. I know sometimes I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but at the very least, when you watch me step into the ring, I'm the realest thing you've seen in a long time, boys.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
You want to tell them your story you're going to tell
Oh,
them?
yeah. Well, if you haven't seen it on our channel, we did an episode about your former tag team partner, and when Caden Murdoch first came out in WWE, they did those vignettes at Tootsie's Lounge.
Yep.
Right, and at Tootsie's Lounge, you can write your name on the wall, right? So I don't know how, because it only been a few months since I had been there as a kid. I don't know how long there was between you guys doing those vignettes and me being there, but where you guys sat at, my name was huge, right in the middle, right between you guys on national television.
No kidding.
Yeah, so my shoot name, Matt Robinson, boom, right there. And I'm just like, I just wrote that like a couple of months ago. So my first, this is, of course, long before I ever got into the business, but I always said, yeah, I was on WWE. Because my name was
we had a lot of fun doing those vignettes, man. That was also cool to, like, you guys have been to Tootsie's, you know how cool and how historic it is. So for us to kind of have an opportunity to shoot some vignettes in there and kind of put that in the history books, it was really awesome for us.
Yeah, definitely one of my favorite tag teams from that era would definitely be you guys. I mean, and watching, Cade in OVW, he was one of my favorites in OVW, and sorely missed for sure.
And he was a dude, just a talented cat. Like, we're talking, let's just lay it out here. Like, dude was like 280 with like 3% body fat, moved, was a heavyweight, but moved like a cruiserweight.
Yeah.
Could go in there and legitimately whip your ass, which you can't say that about a lot of pro wrestlers when you see them step into the ring.
Right.
But he could also go in there and make you look like $1 million. And, as the total package for a pro wrestler, he was it. If he would have been given the opportunities that some of the other young guys in his time frame were given, we'd be talking about him as a former world champion.
Oh, yeah.
And most, could possibly still be alive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there's a dark side at times to pro wrestling, and we all get caught up in it, and it's sad the way things ended for Cade. You know what I mean? But I do everything I can to try to keep his memory alive and keep people remembering who he is. At least, I know for sure at least twice a year I put something out about him, so people, so I can remind everybody about what kind of guy he was and what kind of wrestler he was.
So, if you had any advice for an up-and-coming wrestler, what would it be?
Don't do it. Don't do that shit. Don't do that shit. Go to trade school. Go to college. Go play some baseball. It's what I tell my son. I've got a 16-year-old boy who's a junior in high school, and he's been to a lot of pro wrestling, and I'm almost thankful to a certain extent. Like, he has no interest in getting in the ring and wrestling. He doesn't want to be a second generation, which I'm completely okay with that. But excuse me. But if you are a young guy or gal and you're interested in becoming a pro wrestler. Uh, learn the best advice I can give you is learn from somebody who's been successful in the field that you want to be in.
Hmm.
And it has to be like fucking recent,
Yeah.
not like 40 years ago. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
let's and make sure that you're always going to find promoters out there that are willing to work you. Um, but you got to ask yourself if those are the type of promoters you want to work for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So, yeah, dude, training is all about it. In my opinion, that's the secret. You know,
Hmm.
once I realized I was young enough guy. Once I realized that Harley was opening up a school and I could be one of the first students at the Harley Race Academy, I I went all in.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I moved down. I was working when I moved back to St. Louis. I got a job at J.L.O.W, the same company that built the St. Louis Arch. I was making at that time like $22 an hour. We're talking in 99,
Wow.
98.
It's good money.
Union job, living. My mom lived in St. Louis in a three-story house, so I had the whole top level with my own bathroom, kitchen set up. So if I wanted to be an arrogant asshole and not see anybody, I could. I had this, I had the setup, and I traded all of that in to move to Springfield, Missouri, to a two-bedroom house with six other people to sleep on a living room floor, um, to train for Harley Race in a boxing ring because he didn't even have a wrestling ring at the
Man,
time. He had rented out time for us at a boxing school.
wow.
So they didn't like put in a wrestling ring in there. We bumped in a boxing ring.
Oh man.
And there was me and another guy. His name was Matt Murphy. And thankfully, I knew how to bump before I got there because I've been wrestling for about 2 years. You
Hmm.
know, I was that one of those guys. Yeah, I've been wrestling for 2 years and probably had like 9 matches, 10 matches. You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
that horse shit. Um, but I gave all of that up so I could go sweat my ass off every day and learn from Harley Race. We were in that boxing school in Springfield for about 3 months
Wow.
until he found a building here in Eldon where I live at, and he lived at the lake, so it's about 10 minutes apart,
Hmm.
and he moved all of the operations down here to Eldon, and that's where we finally got a boxing ring after 3 months.
Wow. Yeah,
Got a
bump.
wrestling ring, not a
Yeah,
boxing ring, a
yeah,
wrestling ring.
right.
Sorry.
Yeah, we understood what you meant. Yeah, because I've heard horror stories about bumping in boxing rings. I mean, bumping in a wrestling ring is not necessarily comfortable.
Yeah.
And
No,
boxing
it
rings are
it
worse.
sucked, but it's what we knew it wasn't a permanent situation, and we knew that it wasn't a situation Harley wanted us in
Yeah.
because he knew it was hurting us. You know what I mean? And Matt and I were two young guys with no ties, no children. We weren't married. We were young enough to devote 100% all of our time to pro wrestling and training, and that's what we did. And I'm not joking. Like Harley's job was to go to the school. So we trained 6 days a week. When he was at the school, we were bored. If we didn't have to work, we didn't have nothing else to do. So we'd go up to the school and we'd sit up there for 4 and 5 hours, sometimes more, just hanging out and getting in the ring and having, trying out new spots that we'd worked on. Or we would go and sit in Harley's office and we would listen to stories about Terry Funk and stories about things he did in Minnesota that got him almost thrown in jail and just things that I can't even want to repeat and opportunities for Harley to call guys like Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Dusty Rhodes on the speakerphone in the office and him telling us and him just having a conversation and we're all just
Wow.
and it's that's what was life was for me,
Hmm.
for 10 years. That's how it was. And
So good.
that's how I learned from everybody, learned from things. I just sat back and watched and asked questions and worked my ass off. The first 3 months of the training when I was at Harley's camp, I got sick every single day, and that's not like an exaggeration. That's not me trying to just tell the story. It was literally every single day. And Harley'd be in the he'd be around the ring, he'd be smoking a cigarette, and the training room wasn't very big, so it'd get filled up with smoke. And you're doing calisthenics, and it's can't say nothing. It's Harley Race. You just suck it up and deal with it. Uh, I'd go outside and get sick, have to run back in, get a bucket full of water, splash it on my puke that was out on the street, come back in and catch up on my calisthenics and move on. That was my first 3 months,
Wow.
every single day of training.
That's impressive.
Yes.
That's really impressive.
But I had nothing. Guys, it wasn't like I didn't want to be anything else. Like that, when I say I was 100% all in, I got jobs to supplement my wrestling habit. That's like everything surrounded my wrestling. I quit so many jobs because they would need me to work on a Friday, and I would have to head to a town that was 4 hours away from Eldon where we were going to go wrestle that night, and I couldn't be there, and they'd make me choose, and I'd say, well, peace out. Like I quit. I'll take my check, and I would go wrestle that weekend, and that Monday I'd be out, feet on the ground looking for another job, hitting the classifieds back then.
Yeah.
Find me another job, explain to them what I do for what I felt like I do for a living, and explain to them what kind of schedule I would need. They would be super cool with it for about 2 months, and then they would want me to work on Saturdays, and then they wouldn't give me the Fridays I'd need off, and I would go through the same thing over again. I would quit, go wrestle. That Monday I'd be back looking for another job. It was all about wrestling and what my next opportunity was. I sacrificed everything like for that stuff, for wrestling, so I could be successful. And I missed out on a lot of family opportunities. I missed out on a lot of family events for sure. I got a lot of road miles just so I could be a pro wrestler.
Mhm.
But it's all worth it.
Yeah, for sure. You got a
You
question?
guys got me rambling, not saying nothing. You guys got to ask more questions.
Oh, we enjoy the rambling.
Oh, yeah.
I do believe it probably comes from what I was taught early on, being in wrestling, is you just sit there and listen, and just let the veterans tell you what they're going to tell you, because it is priceless knowledge. So that's
Yeah.
Right.
that's why we just sit here and listen and let you go. It's an honor to hear you ramble. So yeah, we do appreciate it. So,
So after NWA 74, what's next for Trevor Murdoch?
Oh man, I have no clue, because here's the truth, boys. I'm the world's heavyweight champion. I make it through Tyrus. There's sure as hell going to be somebody else waiting on the other side of the curtain, wanting to claim their next opportunity. You know what I mean? And that's the one good thing about being a world champion. I ain't got to go far to look for a fight,
right.
and that's so I kind of let the cards fall where they fall in that. I've been very vocal in the fact that I'm willing to fight top tier talent. I've raised my voice and let everybody know that if Matt Cordona feels like he wants to step back up, I'm more than welcome to give him an opportunity. I kind of feel like he owes me that W back, and I'm willing to put the world's heavyweight title on the line to prove it. So that's what's next for me.
Yeah. He's willing to beat up Nick Aldis. He's willing to beat all of them.
Line him up.
All
Yeah,
of them.
I
Line
don't-
them up.
Guys, I really, honestly, I don't care. Like, I've had a lot of people talk to me, like here recently, saying, Trevor, you turned into a real jerk. You got an attitude change. It's not. Yeah, I don't have an attitude change. I'm just focused on what's got me where I'm at. I'm just what's been successful. The first time I won the world heavyweight title, it took me 6 months, man, and a lot of fighting and a lot of matches with Nick Aldis, a lot of mental games, and I overcame all of it, and I won. And I felt like that world title was for my family, for Harley, for St. Louis, for the good guys. You know what I mean? I felt like it was one for the good guys.
Yeah.
Um, whereas it didn't take me but another 6 months maybe, or another 4 or 5 months maybe, but you know I'm I did what I had to do to become world champion again, and I'm going to continue to do what's been working for me, and that's focus on me, go in there and just agree, just kick ass. Just don't. I'm not in there to be friends. I'm not in there to entertain. I'm not in there to make other people happy. I'm in there to punish people, to let them know that this is a different type of world champion. You know what I mean? I'm not pretty. I'm not nice. I don't, sometimes I don't cut the best promos. I ramble sometimes in podcasts, obviously. Um, One thing I bring to this world title is ruthless aggression. And I know that word that phrase may be overplayed a little bit from old school, but that's exactly what I'm bringing. And that's the type of world champion I'm going to be.
Awesome.
And that's what I'm going to do with Tyrus at 74.
Oh yeah, I love that you're a fighting world champion.
Yep.
I love it.
Yep.
I don't really know how to do anything else, fellas.
Well, I think that is the most solid interview we could have asked for.
Yep.
I want to thank you again for coming on here. It has been an honor and a pleasure.
Thanks, boys. I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Yep. And kick all the ass you can.
I'll do my best.
Let's do it again sometime.
Yeah.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Bye, boys.
Hey, everybody, it's Morty.
It's Brian.
And thank you for watching today's episode of Developmentally Speaking.
If you could, please click that subscribe button.
And don't forget to punch that bell icon so you can get notified whenever we go live or drop a new video every Monday. Well, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next
Developmentally Speaking.